Good morning and welcome to CDBG Advisory Committee meeting of October 16th. Roll call, please.
Committee members Cornell.
Present.
Oganessian is absent. Olivares.
Here.
Zananian.
Here.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
The agenda for the October 16, 2012 meeting of the CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on Friday, October 12, 2012 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2, minutes. At A, approval of the minutes of the February 17, 2012, February 22, 2012, February 28, 2012, and June 27, 2012 CDBG Advisory Committee meetings.
I move, Madam Chair, that we accept the minutes as submitted by the recording secretary for the minutes of February 17th, 22nd, February 28th, and June 27th.
Can I second that?
No, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It would have to be one of the other committee members. And
I
believe
have a question
Yes.
regarding that. I can vote on the 17th and the 22nd, but I was absent on the 27th. So how do we handle that?
Do them separately.
I have the same situation, so
Sure.
maybe two
I
motions.
believe
Two motions, yeah, if
the
we can.
February 17th can be seconded by Sinanian. The 22nd could also be, and February 28th as well. And you're correct, the June 27th, I think we'll need to leave for another time.
Okay.
So if you want to move everything but June 27th, we can move forward.
Was Mr. Oganian present on that?
Oganessian
Oganessian.
was not present,
Okay.
but I believe Mr. Olivares was present on the 27th, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So in that case, you can move,
Right.
you can
So
second or
I
move
think
that.
probably the thing to do is for Mr. Cornell to move the first three, February 17, 22nd, and 28. I'll abstain from that.
Correct.
And then we'll do a second motion for the,
Is that okay with you, Mr. Cornell?
Yes, I can accept the amendment, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'll take roll call for those three. Committee members Cornell,
Yes?
Oganessian is absent, Olivares,
abstain?
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
And I'll take roll call, I'm sorry, I would need a motion for the June 27th minutes.
I move for June 27th acceptance of the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second that, but I think chairs cannot second that, so
Exactly.
Will you second?
has to be Mr. Cornell.
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you. I'll take roll call. Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian is absent, Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Abstain?
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
Item 3, staff or committee comments.
I do have a comment. Some information that I think already our community is aware of. Glendale Adventist Medical Center is doing a campaign. It's a friendly campaign. It's called Army of Pink. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So Glendale Adventist has put together a campaign to raise awareness in the community, and it's called Army of Pink. We have 6 great candidates who are very influential individuals in the community, and they're raising awareness. They're talking about the education of breast cancer, and you can go online, Glendale Adventist Army of Pink, and vote for your favorite candidate. As you can see, we have few candidates that are very dedicated to this cause, and what you need to do is just click on the candidate and watch the video and see who looks best in pink. 6 men are wearing pink and promoting and talking about the importance of screenings and early detection. So it's very important that you vote for your favorite candidate. Paula Devine is also involved, and she is the captain for the Army of Pink. So go to Glendale Adventist Army of Pink and vote for your favorite candidate and learn about the early detection, screenings, and what's available in our community and at Glendale Adventist. Please visit Glendale Adventist. Thank you.
I'd like to hear a woman's opinion on which one looks better.
I think they all look good. I'm campaigning for Dr. Sapilian. He's one of our physicians at the hospital, so. But everyone's doing a great job promoting and, raising awareness. Thank you. See, you already have the booklet, yes.
You got it?
We had a kickoff event a few weeks ago, and they're pretty active. Our candidates are.
Madam
Voting.
Chair, how long does this continue to?
The voting closes on October 26th.
And the voting is multiple voting, or what's the limit on that? You can vote
Online voting, you can vote as many times as you want. So it's a friendly competition, but our
Okay.
candidates are pretty, involved, and they're raising awareness, and they're doing their part. So you can just vote for your favorite one.
Okay, well, I'm quite sure if your hospital is involved and it's a sponsor, that we know it is terrific then.
Thank you. Yes, it's a great cause. Next.
Madam Chair, we do have a couple of staff comments, and it's mostly actually some announcements from staff. First off is our Thanksgiving food drive, sponsored by the Community Services and Parks Department, the Human Services section, including the CDBG section. And that is from October 31st to November 16th. These are a food drive for our seniors who are homebound and don't necessarily get around as much as we like to the ARC or to other senior events. This is primarily for city employees to drop off food, cans or dry foods or other items or liquids at the city sites, community centers such as Pacific Park, Spar Heights, Maple Park. The libraries will have boxes for employees to drop off. But certainly we invite the committee to participate, and also to the general public if they like to drop off food. This will be distributed during the week before Thanksgiving to our seniors here in Glendale, our needy seniors. We also will be kicking this off on October 31st, which is the city's holiday, the potluck, employees potluck event on 31st. That's on Halloween. That is actually a costume event as well. So Community Services and Park staff will be in costume that day, and we'll have a potluck, and certainly invite the committee to come by during their lunch hour and participate. And if you'd like to bring some canned foods, that'd be great too. But certainly that's something we encouraged our employees and our greater community to participate in.
That's great. Thank you. That's great. Next.
Madam Chair, as long as we have the announcements, or some of the announcements at this time, I'd like to put one up here for Glendale Healthy Kids. It's a masquerade. It's going to be held at the Americana. It's October 27th. It'll be a fun and terrific event, as always any GHK event is. And if you'd like more information on this, where you can get your tickets and so on, you can call Glendale Healthy Kids at 548-7931.
Very good.
Madam Chair, just one more announcement. We're going to have a very busy fall and winter season. We also have the Homeless and Senior Connect Day. Homeless Connect Day was an annual event, and I'm sure Mr. Cornell has been there as well, and I believe Mr. Olivares. I think all the committee members have been there. We're actually making it a joint Homeless and Senior Connect Day. This event is sponsored by Sensia and the City of Glendale Community Services and Parks Department, and is to provide services information to seniors as well as the homeless and the very low-income population for a lot of services here in the community, including health, government benefits, the emergency housing referrals and child care services, veterans benefits, mental health services. So it's a one-stop event where participants can come. It's scheduled for Friday, December 14th, between 10 and 2 p.m. The location right now is tentatively at the National Guard Armory on Colorado Street. We haven't confirmed that yet, but that's our first choice. Hopefully we'll get that confirmed very soon. If not, it will be at St. Mary's Church on Central Avenue. but certainly it's an event that for the general community, for seniors and homeless, but also very low-income persons. And there will be food served during lunch as well. So we hopefully invite the committee to drop by and visit. Of course, our agencies, from block grant agencies, will be there as well. Sensia, the other agencies participate in other ways. So the hospital, I believe, as well too. So thank you.
Okay, I guess we can move to the next item.
Item 4, action item at A, selection of new chair and vice chair.
All right, already 1 year, so we're time flies. All right, so Iris, walk us through the process. I think we just need to go through the nomination. We just nominate our own candidate.
Yes, Madam Chair, at this point, if you wouldn't mind turning the meeting over to me, I'll proceed.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. The business before the CDBG Advisory Committee is the selection of new chair. I will now entertain nominations for that office. I will not be needing a second, just nominations are enough.
Well, I can start with nominating. I would like to nominate Mr. Olivares. I think he has a great experience. He's been on the committee for a few years, and I feel like
More than a few years.
more than a few, more than us. So I would like to nominate Mr. Olivares for the next chair.
Thank you.
Next.
I'd like
I have a
hear-
slightly different thought, and I wanted to share that and maybe have a discussion about it. I've been in this committee a long, long time. I see some old friends in the audience that were with me in the original committee a long time ago. I'd like to nominate Mr. Cornell. He has been very diligent in this committee. I know we've had differences of opinion in the past, and that's all they were. So I would like to nominate Mr. Cornell and see if I get the support.
Question. Someone who's been nominated, and their decision to nominate someone else functions as a rejection or refusal to be nominated, right? To accept.
I'm not sure, Mr. Olivares, if you're not accepting or it's
Yeah,
two
I
persons
forget.
in here. I mean,
Not to be honest with you, I always forget what the process is, and when we
so we can have
I don't know
two.
whether I should take a second crack
It's about
at
a
it.
year.
Yeah, we can have two nominees.
Okay.
But let
point.
me say this then. I truly appreciate the nomination. I really do. I will not accept it at this point in time, and in turn, I would like to nominate Mr. Cornell.
Okay. Mr. Sinanian.
The reason I asked Mr. Olivares is because I was hoping I could cajole him into accepting whether his nomination is his refusal to be or. But I guess that's clear right now.
Don't get me wrong. I truly appreciate the nomination.
I'd like to hear the chairwoman,
I'm sorry?
the chairwoman's opinion.
Oh, God. I think I have confidence in all of our members. So can I say my first? Okay, not that you're refusing.
Well, let's see if
I will-
Mr. Cornell wants. I mean, does he want?
Would
does he
you?
want-
Yes, I'm happy
Accept.
to serve.
Okay.
Happy
Then I
to
would be
serve.
fine with
And-
having
and-
Mr. Cornell. I
and
mean,
I'm
I
very-
will nominate
very
him.
honored with Mr. Alvarez's nomination.
So you.
Yes, I will follow, and I will nominate Mr. Cornell.
Okay. So I mean, there's how many votes do we need to approve a chairman?
Chairperson. We need a majority vote.
Majority of the board or majority of
We need at
those
least-
present?
I think we need 3 votes.
The present, huh?
I'm sorry?
Of the members present.
We would need a quorum, so
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. I move that the nominations be closed for that of chair.
Do I hear any further nominations for the office of chair?
Well, if Mr. Cornell is accepting, then I guess,
You do have the option of, even if somebody does accept it, you can nominate somebody else, or you can nominate yourself if you choose to, just so you know that that is a possibility. Given that, do I hear any further nominations? If not, I will go ahead and close.
You want to count up to 3? Or just...
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
yeah.
We're close, it's close.
Is he?
Okay. We have one nomination for Mr. Cornell. Hearing no further nominations, I'll proceed with the roll call. Committee Member Cornell,
Yes.
Committee Member Oganessian is absent. Committee Member Olivares,
Yes.
Committee Member Sinanian,
Yes.
Committee Member Markarian.
Yes.
I now declare Committee Member Cornell the duly elected Chair of the CDBG Advisory Committee. Mr. Chair, the task before you now is to open the floor for nominations for Vice Chair.
Madam Secretary, I'd like at this time so I can make a nomination. I can't do that as chair according to my knowledge of Robert's rules. So I'd like to have you still hold the gavel to complete this so that I can make a nomination for vice chair. I'd like to, at this time, make a nomination for Mr. Olivares as vice chair.
Do I hear any other nominations for the position of Vice Chair? Okay, we have one nomination for Committee Member Olivares. Hearing no further nomination, I will proceed to the roll call. Committee Member Cornell,
Yes.
Markarian,
Yes.
Oganessian is absent, Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian.
Yes.
I now declare Committee Member Olivares the duly elected Vice Chair of the CDBG Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I would like to say that we had a great year with our chair. I've always held the opinion throughout the years that I do like to, one reason why I made the nomination that I did today. I kind of like to see fresh thinking and fresh people take that role.
Absolutely.
We always behave as a committee. We always advise each other on issues, and so I think you did a fantastic job. I know you're so involved in the community, so we need to give you some more time to do other things. But thank you for all the work the last year.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to chair this committee. I think we had very dedicated members, very knowledgeable, very involved in the community. They all brought their own ideas, fresh ideas and experiences to this group, and it was wonderful serving as a chair, and I'm looking forward to serve many more years with all of you. I think we have a great team, and we come together. We have our differences, but again, we all come together, and we do the right thing. So,
I just want to...
congratulations, Mr. Cornell.
Thank you. But I'm not going to let you off that easy. We have something for you, which is customary for this committee to do.
Before you
when
give her
the chair is retired.
before you give her the plaque, I just want to thank our former chairwoman for her leadership. Considering the difficult year that we've had, we had, we did the best that we could, and in many respects, that was thanks to your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, did I cry now?
Chair, I'd like to present this to you on behalf of the committee. And this plaque acknowledges your exceptional leadership skills as chair of this committee. And it's with privilege as the succeeding chair that you be presented with this for the beautiful job you did in keeping us all together and developing senses among us.
Thank you. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Do we switch now, or yes?
It rotates here? Okay. Oh. it's almost like moving here, you know, calling that. You know, it's, yes, I have a hard act to follow, as Mrs. Markham, which she has done for this committee, her perseverance, her leadership, and most of all, the consensus in keeping us together. It's not easy. We're all individuals. We have our ideology here. But when it comes down to one thing, the interest of this city, that's where we all agree, because that's why we're here. And I just want to say thank you. Hopefully I can earn your vote of confidence. And with that, we'll get the meeting underway then. Thank you. Okay. Madam Recording Secretary, we're on, what, 4B now?
That's correct. Item 4B, review and approve fiscal year 2013-2014 CDBG program priorities.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I wanted to give a brief report just on the program priorities for fiscal year 2013-2014 for the CDBG and homeless and home programs. We're actually mostly working on the CDBG priorities at this point. The CDBG staff had conducted a public hearing at Mann Elementary School on September 19th. I know Mr. Cornell, Chairman Cornell now was there and participated in one of our focus group meetings. We have 51 participants at this meeting and divided again into different focus groups to discuss the priority needs of the community. We also looked at some demographic data and see what kind of trends are happening in Glendale from the 2010 census. Unfortunately, there's still some data that we still need to analyze from the census on the census tract level. We have it for the city of Glendale as a whole, but looking at our target areas and looking at where we spend the majority of our CDBG funds, we still need to get that data going and analyze. Part of it's the census is still not come out with all the data that we need. So this is more of an information as far as what we have. There is a section called Key Demographic Indicators on page 3 that lists the new census figures for the city of Glendale. For example, our poverty rate has dropped to 11.1%, where it was about 14% in 2000. So there are some improvements in the community. However, we're still going to look at the South Glendale area and see where there may be some increases or slight decreases, and maybe report back to the committee on that at the next meeting. Also in your handouts was a summary of all the comments that were received from our 3 focus group meetings, from community development priorities to housing, homeless, economic development, housing, and also transportation. So this kind of gives us staff an idea of what's happening in the community and what changes we might anticipate for next year. We also gave you a summary of the priorities or the needs from the meeting. That's on page 1, and I'll briefly go through some of those items. The first one is the public social services, and that's generally where the committee gets the proposals from the community. By and large, it hasn't changed much. We know that youth continue to be priority and a big need in the community. Senior services, affordable child care, the ESL, basic skills training. What we found is more and more need for continued public safety programs for the community, such as crime awareness, gang prevention, drug prevention in the community, primarily for youth. And those programs are certainly working in conjunction with the police department were funded this year through our STAR program and continued through the YMCA's Pell program. There was also some needs for some public safety improvements at our parks to continue the safety of residents utilizing the parks, and that primarily is park lighting, fencing, some additional landscape measures to make the parks a little bit more safer. So community residents gave some good feedback on that. That's kind of part of our neighborhood improvements on page 2. Suggestions and comments from the community. We did find again with the parks is that safety is a primary concern from a lot of residents, but there's also certainly the need for continued street lighting projects, parking, traffic and calming and parking as well in the community. Also, our trash and debris removal was commented as needing more of, especially in the southern Glendale area. The other part was our facilities, and again, community residents continue to emphasize parks and recreational facilities, the senior centers, youth centers as the priorities for the community to the city to look at for the community. And in that, actually, they were looking at the playground equipment in the South Glendale area as one of the needs in some of the larger parks. And they also mentioned that we do need to look at the having community services and recreation service at all the parks. Some parks do not have staffing there, but we do have activities. But of course, their emphasis is more and more activities. In our housing section, again, continued concern about the rising rents in the community and the concern for affordable rents and the need for some code enforcement in those residents without triggering, as they mentioned, any type of rent increases. So they're really looking at continuing to afford the rents, but also to continue to have decent sanitary housing. But also, the residents identify senior housing and housing repairs for disabled persons as needs. So again, these seem to be continued priorities from the prior year and from our 5-year consolidated plan, except again, we did see a little bit more code enforcement issues come up. For the homeless questions, we did get feedback on homeless outreach to the community as far as letting community know about the statistics of homelessness, the places where homeless persons can access services, and the need for some programs to continue receive funding. There was some emphasis on providing shelters, meals, and clothing for the homeless, as well as the creating homeless day centers where homeless persons can come in during the day, and again providing additional food pantries for the homeless and lower income clients. One other item that we did ask the community about was dealing with transportation, and that wasn't necessarily a 5-year program priority per se. It was more of a city plan right now. The city is going through a South Glendale update of the neighborhood plan from the 134 freeway down to the border. They are doing, planning section is doing a very intensive update of the South Glendale plan, much like they did in the North Glendale area. So they're asked to partner with us to get the feedback as well in the community. One thing that they did mention was that we needed to survey persons on transportation. A lot of the community down Southern Glendale does take public transportation, and staff, that's not necessarily been one of our emphasis in the CDBG program, but we did get a lot of comments on the B-line, the services to the community for transportation, which we'll take to our transportation staff. Some of those were increasing the B-line lines to the South Glendale schools. Sometimes they stop at a certain street, such as Chevy Chase, and they don't continue on to Cerritos. Having more frequency to the other high schools and changing routes, or also the biggest concern was the fare of the B-line being, I believe it's $1.25. So it does get, for persons taking their families to school, it does get a little bit more expensive for the lower income families. But we'll bring those questions and those comments up to the transportation staff. And not necessarily a CDBG program that's utilized for this kind of program, but we do want to make sure that those comments are given to the transportation department. that we do in the future may need to look at CDBG as another resource to assist with any other transportation, public transportation in the eligible areas in South Glendale. So other than that, that's pretty much it. There are, again, a number of notes that you can go by on the spreadsheet that has the 3 categories. We did have a great turnout of 51 participants, very active involvement by the residents and staff to really get some good ideas on where we're going. And, of course, they like to see continued improvements when we go there, and knowing that the CDBG has certainly limitations as funding, but they all know it seem to be consistent with their comments throughout the 3 groups. So with that, I'll leave that for any questions from the committee.
I have one question, Chair. The 11% improvement on the poverty line, how would that impact our funding from HUD? I mean, is
Committee
this
Markarian,
something that...
Yes, we would have to look at, that would be some certain areas, maybe, we haven't looked at all the areas as far as their data from HUD. HUD hasn't come out with that data yet. They extrapolate from the census and then give us our low mod data. But looking at some of the data we have now from the poverty census tracts, there may be some areas that have gone from eligible CDBG areas to non-eligible. It's not the reverse. We know it's actually going to improve, and it will reduce probably the eligible areas and possibly some eligible parks, eligible facilities that may be eligible for CDBG. So there will be some impacts. I think by the next meeting that we have, we certainly will give the committee a full report on those areas, and we can show on a map where, before and after the census, where those new areas are going to be. But we can certainly see some impact of decreased areas for CDBG funding.
Just a couple of comments. On reviewing I don't know if the public has seen this, but we have the 3 categories, which are Spanish, Armenian, and English, in terms of the comments that were made from the participants. But I noticed a particular theme that came up a lot, and that had to do with affordable housing and also disabled housing across the groups. And I know we get this, and it's not something we can have an impact here at CDBG, but it's probably information that needs to be relayed to the council, especially with the changes that the city has gone through in redevelopment or lack of redevelopment. But it seems to be a growing, I know it's a concern in a lot of cities, and obviously we're hearing it here. So I just wanted to mention that because it's an important one.
Yes.
And of course, there's a couple of comments about cyclists, and being a cyclist, I hear a lot of comments, and so
Yes, absolutely.
it's a big issue in the city lately. Thank you.
Any further follow-up? I just have one brief comment to Mr. Carrillo. I've attended all these since I've been a member, since 2008, and I'm not sure what you did this time around, but it was very refreshing to see a great participation on behalf of the citizens, residents, especially in South Glendale there. According to your record, we had 51. Normally we're in the 30s, I think as high as I've seen, maybe 42, 43, but this was overwhelming. I'm not sure what you did this time, although I was very refreshed to see that you brought in our new city manager. And I'm not sure if that might have enticed a lot of people to come and see him and meet him and so on. But you did a good job here, and hopefully for next year you can even increase that beyond 51 here. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I think staff did a great job in getting outreach out to the schools and to the parks and our websites and our ads. So staff did a great job in the outreach, and that was obviously shown in the participation that we did get. So,
one of your statistics here that you had down here, it's on page 3, that concerned me a lot, and that was on the home-delivered meals for the seniors. And now, is this, and I see there is a reduction. Oh, we're always happy with reductions to get people off the program and hopefully more family participants involved there. But is this mainly the reduction? What do you have, about 44 difference here? And the reduction of financial benefits and to that department, which is the reason for the deduction, or is it other factors involved? Page 3.
Mr. Chairman, Cornell, if I may answer that question, it's probably more a product of the funding level that we receive from the County of Los Angeles. It tends to fluctuate from year to year, albeit slightly, but it's probably more a product of that than a drop in demand for home delivered meals. I think the demand is pretty consistent, and we do rely on the county funding to fund that program.
Okay. I have a request to speak on this item from Mr. Peters for the Door of Hope, and you're welcome now, Mr. Peters, to take the podium.
Thank you, Chair Cornell and committee. I just want to real briefly just mention a couple things regarding the meeting that I was at. I attended the community meeting, and it was well attended, and actually I really appreciated the support of the community to give input. And as you've seen the statistics in the data that you have there, the poverty level is down. Homelessness in general, the total count is actually down. And veterans' homelessness have been really significantly lowered, if not completely housed at this point. And so there's been some great efforts on the part of the different supportive services that work with homeless. But one statistic I just want to reiterate and just to emphasize as you think about funding priorities, if you are aware of the 2012 homeless count that was done annually here in Glendale, of those that were counted, physically counted here in Glendale that were homeless, 29 or 43% were individuals, and 134 or 45% were persons and families. And 12% were did not disclose, and so actually we could say that well over 50%. 45% disclosing more than individuals were in families that were homeless here in Glendale. And so just the emphasis of the increased number of homeless families with children in Glendale. There's actually 79 homeless children that were counted in the 2012 homeless count, which is 26%. I didn't know if you recognize that, but 26% of our homeless in Glendale are children. And so and that doesn't count those that are couch surfing, those that are just not physically able to be counted on that point in time count. And so as you consider funding priorities, I just want to encourage you to recognize the needs, especially the growing numbers of homeless families with children, with the economy affecting that population, I think, as greatly as any. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Peters. Mr. Colonel?
So, I'm sorry. Chairman Cornell, I have to get used to that, sorry. So we do have a final sheet at the end of your packet there that has the program priorities that we are proposing for fiscal year 2013-2014. Does a list of social services, the neighborhood facility improvements, housing, homeless. These are essentially been the same as last year. We felt that it was essentially be good to keep those priorities so that we continue to improve on those services, and that we, again, as we RFP out, that we have proposals that are part of this priorities. We did have, and this will come up during the RFP session proposal, we did have certain comments about, again, the safety net. We've talked about that for a number of years, and how challenging it is in the community right now to provide services for those who are really in that very low income and those who are on the verge of being homeless, and making those safety net programs a priority However, in this discussion for this one, it is essentially these items that are here, and then we can discuss that RFP process and the next agenda items. So this is available for your approval and motion to approve the program priorities for fiscal year 2013-14.
Very good.
I'd like to move for approval. The program
I will
priorities.
second that.
Roll call?
Committee members Organizian absent. Olivares?
Yes.
Markarian?
Yes.
Tananian?
Yes.
Chair Cornell.
Yes. Okay.
Next, we have 4C, review and approve preliminary fiscal year 2013-2014 CDBG funding allocation plan by funding category.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, in your report, you have the fiscal year 2013-2014 preliminary CDBG funding allocation plan. You'll see it on the screen here that has the fiscal year 12-13 current year and our fiscal year 13-14 estimate. And the next column would show the actual difference in dollars. Unfortunately, again, the funds for CDBG continue to receive reductions, and this year is no different that we're proposing. Right now, that is about a 4.4% difference in entitlement funding. That's the direct HUD funding from the previous year. We did have funds that were used previously from projects that were closed out that we transferred over to the next year. We just have one project for that. That's an economic development program that we're moving over to next year. Well, actually canceling that and having that moved till next year. Again, the big difference is that HUD impact, that is part of an overall HUD cut and also some funds that we have to pay back for some other projects that were canceled. So I will go through the availability of funds, and then we can get into questions. We expect, again, estimate of $1.9 million, $1,977,000 for the fiscal year 2013-14. From that, we are allowed a 20% administration for those costs for staff or operation, rent, planning studies, other types of studies, other administration. It also includes administration of the homeless continuum of care programs. That is now $370,000, a cut from the previous year of, again, 4.4%, a $17,000 cut. The social services, which are the primary fund that is RFP'd out, that has been reduced from $296,900 to $277,000. And that is $19,900, and that's a 6.7% drop. And the reason for that is because there was some program income that we used last year for social services. But just to give you an idea of where we were in 2011-12, we had $446,000 available to community. Now it's $277,000. So certainly getting into half of that now being lost by the cuts to the CDBG program. The next category would be the capital improvements projects. That's funded at $1.3 million. Again, a cut from previous year of $437,000. That's about 24% cut. Again, a lot of it because that money that we've always moved over from canceled projects is no longer there. The way we've, again, identified through the process of pre-designation, which Council has set aside funds for pre-designated projects, is that $1.1 million will be used for our pre-designated projects. And those include the continued code enforcement program. Again, that's been reduced as well from previous year. I know we had comments on that from previous year that we had not reduced that, but now that's being reduced, as are the other programs. We do have no longer that Edison Pacific grant, which would certainly save us some money. However, the cost for that goes to the SH Hope project, which is the emergency shelter and access center for our continuum of care and be operated by Essentia. That loan payment is $198,964. The next project would be a city park project, and that's at Palmer Park and Maple Park. Those both would be playground improvement projects at about $500,000. Again, that's kind of in line with what our thoughts have been as far as what improvements we need to make at certain parks. And again, our community feedback has been that the playground equipment is really not up to par, whether it's ADA or other issues with maintenance now being deferred. So that is one certainly priority that we want to take care of now. Scroll down. So that balances out your project. We do have to make some reductions in our grants from projects that were canceled. However, we do anticipate moving that $100,000 from the economic development project that we had to the general fund. And that will give us some extra funds for maintaining basically a 4-point, well, it's actually about 19% reduction, but at least that helps with the overall budget for CDBG. I will caution that this is very much an estimate. We don't know what the final amount is in that second line, HUD entitlement, until when Congress gets back in November, or possibly, waiting until March after the elections. There is a continuing resolution that will keep the funding at this level for now, but depending on the election, depending on what happens with Congress, if they come back and change this around, there would be some new figures. We hope that this figure will stay, but again, we're not sure if that will be reduced based on the new figures for that Congress has for their budget. So it is preliminary. We are going to go to RFP out with that social service amount of $277,000, and I forgot to mention the $200,000 for capital projects for the community, which is the same. Can we go down a little bit? A little bit. Right. Down, which is the same for $210,000, which is the same as last year. We do not want to make any significant cuts to the community because that continues to be an area I'm sure the committee has expressed concern and would like to continue to have funds available for community projects. So that is the preliminary proposed funding plan. And again, if there's questions from the committee.
I have a question. Are we anticipating recapturing any funds that's out there with any other social services, any other organizations?
Chair, committee member, I was going to say Chair. Committee member Markari, no, there's no other programs or projects that are canceling or reducing their programs. We did make that one reduction for Club Jam, but agencies so far have been adjusting to their new allotments and allocations, and we hope that not to have any more agencies return money back.
Okay, fine. Mr. Harris?
I just have a general comment, and it's something I generally say every year. You know, when we look at these numbers and we're looking at almost $2 million, 1977, $1,977,000. If we really look at the numbers of that $2 million, $210,000 are being made available for undesignated community projects. That's the nonprofits out there. And $277,000 are going to public services, the 15% allowable. This is out of $2 million. The real bulk of all this is going to pre-designated projects in the city, which we have no decision. We have we are not in a position to make a decision on those here. Those were pre-designated by the council. To me, that just doesn't seem like a really good balance of CDBG funds and a good use of CDBG funds. And most of it, again, is going to pre-designated projects that somebody else is making the decision, I believe, on our behalf. And I've always had an issue with this because I think that every community, every group out there should be able to come in and compete for the same money. Like the city, same as the city should be able to come in and compete against those groups. So that's my personal opinion. To me, it's just ridiculous that we have $210,000 for the community out there for their projects. And I think that's just not a fair thing, and I think that somehow we need to start looking at that in the future. That's my comments.
If I may also ask a question, Mr. Chair. Aren't we supposed to receive a certain percentage from the HUD funding to allocate towards social services? I mean, is this the 15%? Is it something that we're being told that should go to social services? We can't just take 50%. I mean, is that a criteria that it's 15% social services and, yeah?
Yes, Committee Member Mark Carriam, 15% is the maximum that HUD would allow us to designate for public social services. Unfortunately, we can't designate more than that.
So does that answer some of our concerns that no?
I mean, I'm aware of that. That's always it's always been the case. 15% automatically, just like 20% is for administration.
Right.
We know that, and we've always accepted
yes.
that. My real issue is with the capital projects and the pre-designated funds that the city, for some reason, in the last few years, certain council members taking the position that they can tap into these monies. My opinion has always been that when it comes to parks, that's a city issue, and they should. That's my opinion. They should figure out another way to city parks, not tap into our CDBG funds.
Chairman Cornell,
Yes.
Committee Member Olivares, if I may, and obviously we can revisit this issue or policy direction in November when we give our reports to City Council and ask the Council to give final approval on this preliminary proposed plan. A couple of things to note. The pre-designated projects are based on the City Council's expressed priorities, especially with the cuts that the city incurred last year with the dissolution of redevelopment, which wiped out a little over $1 million in funding that also went towards code enforcement, so that the CDBG dollars going towards Southern Glendale code enforcement becomes even more valuable. In terms of the Section 108 loan payment, we really don't have a choice but to make those payments to HUD. Once the council committed to the Ascensia project, we committed to these loan payments for the next 10 years. Again, a city council expressed priority and the other priority expressed by council of using the CDBG funds for parks in Southern Glendale, again, to be able to use valuable capital improvement funds for other parks and other parts of the city, so to take advantage of CDBG that they are eligible to be used for Southern Glendale parks. And especially this year, because we virtually no longer have a citywide capital improvement budget to speak of. I mean, it's literally down to nothing until I don't know when. So it's even more pronounced now, which highlights the philosophical question even more. And as usual, it'll be a good discussion to have with City Council in November.
I also encouraged to bring this issue up at City Council because, Mr. Olivares, we've been talking about this for how many years now? And like Mr. Duran said, with the crisis in funding, this only gets worse. I mean, we feel it much more so than we did in the past. I'm just happy that I'm looking at the total amount of money that's been cut by CDBG, which is Mr. Carrillo would know better, but 40%, 45% of last year's amount. And when I add the amount that's not pre-designated, public social services and the capital improvement amounts, the cut of $19,900 is less than. I mean, it's less than 5%. So, of course, that's just a function of some of these payments. Section 108 loan basically coming to an end on one of the loans. So I'm getting happy at sort of trivial things at this point.
But we still have less to work with for the social.
Of course we do.
Correct.
We do.
Correct.
Absolutely. All I'm saying is that in light of the fact that the total of close to 45% of the, I'm sorry, I keep saying 45, close to 20%. What's the percentage cut from last year to this year? It's nearly $500,000. Oh,
20%.
so it's about 20%. So yeah, in light of the fact that 20% of the funds have been cut, and compared to last year, we've only lost $19,900, is something I'm happy about.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, it is refreshing to take a look at here compared to last year when we had the painful experience of having to go through this and the funding of 35%. So, yeah, this is a little bit more refreshing here to see this. But it's nevertheless, it's still quite painful when we come to that segment on the funding here. So it looks constructive, and we'll have to go from there. And this committee, as we have in the past, as we have last year, will meet the challenge. So, but in comment of Mr. Carrillo, what comment that Mr. Alvarez mentioned, and I think I commented on it too. Maybe I think I saw something in the minutes of our last meeting where this member had made a recommendation comparable to what the Housing Authority has on a joint committee, a joint venture and meeting here, and maybe going through this. I know the city council is on the hot seat, and they should have priority on this. But nevertheless, this committee does formulate this. It comes through us, and I feel, and I think most of us do here, that we should have some impact on it. And I think the impact can come in form of a joint meeting with the city council. So I hope in the near term that we can have this so that we can have some input, not necessarily persuade the city council, but at least have some input on these pre-designated projects. Okay. If no further comment, then I'll ask the recording secretary to proceed to 4D. Oh, yeah, Mr. Kerr?
We need a motion on this item. Right?
Yeah.
We do? We need a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for approval of 4C?
Yeah, I would like to move the action item 4C for approval.
Can I interject with a question? What happens if we don't approve it? I'm not suggesting that we're not going to, but I'm just curious. If the board is, let's say, so unhappy with the allocation plan that it doesn't want to move forward with it, what happens? Does it go back to city council?
Mr. Barrett?
As committee members, Sinanian, we do have to issue an RFP, and under the HUD guidelines, we have to let the community know how much money is available under the RFP. So we would probably have to make a staff recommendation to the council in approving the plan in order to be able to publish the RFP, irrespective of the committee's approval of the plan. It would be great, as usual, to have, and again, it's a proposed preliminary plan. It could be changed either by HUD or the council, or even afterward once the RFPs come in, even when we get to the point of reviewing proposals. I know in some years, even though we had the pre-designated amounts, if we received, for lack of a better term, dynamite committee proposals, we can still recommend that, irrespective of the pre-designated aspect of the plan, that you still want to recommend more for community projects and less for city projects. And historically, sometimes the council has gone along with that. It just depends year by year. But generally speaking, we have to make a recommendation to the council anyway on a proposed funding allocation plan in order for us to proceed with the RFP and letting the community know how much is available.
Thank you.
We have on the table
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Could we put a motion forward shifting some of these numbers?
Yes.
Okay. Then I have a motion.
We already have a motion on the table here, so we have to deliberate that first, the ongoing work. There is a motion on the table, and the chair needs a second on this.
May I have to ask a question? What's if the second motion will be moot if we pass the first motion?
Don't pass it and don't say.
So okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
She could rescind
Rescind your motion.
her initial motion.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion to accept the budget with the project expenditures of $1,977,000.
We can't do that. I guess
We can't
Have a motion.
We have to defeat the first motion, which
Okay.
I'm happy to do.
Oh,
I
you
mean-
need a vote, okay. Never mind.
Unless the person that made the motion withdraws the
It was
motion.
rescinded, yeah.
Well, I would like to withdraw the motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's hear Mr.
hear
Olivares.
it.
Okay, now.
So I would like to make the motion of accepting this budget with the projected expenditures of $1,977,000 with one change. That the $586,536 designated for Palmer Maple Park Playground be added to the undesignated community projects.
Do I hear a second on this?
So in other words, the line item under pre-designated projects, Palmer Maple Park, the lowest one, $586,000 and change, then be added to the line item below of $210,000. And the reason for why I'm proposing this, so that the overall expenditures are still the same,
Should add up, right?
but as the CDBG board commission, we can review how those dollars will be used and what they will be used for at the appropriate time. That's my motion.
I'd like to, point of information, I'd like to get, before we get to the discussion, a second on this motion, and then we can go to the discussion phase.
Can we hear the staff on this the park improvement project? Yeah.
Yes, Chair Cornell, members of the committee, in our report to the City Council, we would report, or I would be inclined to report that there was a recommended preliminary funding allocation plan, and then the plan that was moved and approved by the City Council. So I just wanted you to know that I would still need to let the council know that this was the staff recommended plan, and then there was a different plan that was approved by the committee.
And I think that would be acceptable, absolutely.
Mr. Rand, point of information on this, then the council would have to approve that.
The City Council would make the final approval.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I'll take roll call. Committee members Olivares? No, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Oganessian? Yes. Oganessian is absent. Sinanian?
Yes.
Markarian?
Yes.
And Chair Cornell.
Yes.
Item 4D, review and approve a fiscal year 2013-14 request for funding proposal, RFP, and CDBG funding application.
Mr. Chair, this is the process where we get into the CDBG RFP out to the community for two program areas. One is the public social services, and second is the capital improvement projects. I'll talk about the social services first. You do have a copy of a draft RFP that's essentially been the same as last year. There's the RFP and there's a funding application. Staff felt that there was some tweaking of some questions to get some better answers from some of the agencies on some of the questions, but by and large, it still has remained the same. The one difference, of course, is for the social services is the change in funding allocation to, well, not a change, but the reduction in funding allocation for social services at $277,000. That, again, is a result of reduced funding and the 15% funding amount allowed by HUD. So that is the funding amount that we propose to RP out to the community and to our city departments for our city department programs, and all the information here for your approval. We also went in and added the program priorities, which are essentially the ones you just approved two agenda items ago. And I did want to emphasize that there's also certainly discussion by staff that we, again, let the committee know that we have certainly have reduced funding, and that we look at this process again, maybe a little earlier as far as discussing the safety net I mentioned before, and also the funding limits or funding limits for projects. This year was very challenging for everyone to reduce projects. I know that's been very hard, and we know agencies that took some very large hits, in fact had to turn back money or were not funded at all. But by and large, we do have also staff reductions this year that took effect July 1st, and that certainly has impacted the staff availability to monitor and administer these programs. So again, staff certainly wants to keep the same type of process, but making sure the committee understands that, for example, funding a project at $5,000 does not really help that agency, and also puts a large burden on the staff. HUD has also recommended that agencies throughout the country actually begin looking at this, because again, it's more work for HUD. It goes all the way up to Washington D.C. level, so that we again look at projects that are certainly those priority safety net programs that could be funded in a sufficient amount that would make them a very effective program, but we don't look at providing small amounts to someone to get started and use that as certain leverage or something, but that doesn't necessarily help the situation with staff. And so that's just one of certainly the comments we've had from staff in reviewing the RFP. And I know this was discussed during your meetings in January, but again, we wanted just to do this a little earlier so that you understand, and then maybe there's either some recommendations for staff to help facilitate your job in doing your deliberations, because I know it's a very, very long day, but anything that staff could do to assist with your deliberations. I know some committee members asked us which ones are safety net programs, and we can certainly provide that information based on staff reviews. If the committee had more questions about what is their budget, percent asked for CDBG, and more specific questions on that issue, certainly staff can do a bit more analysis on these proposals. So certainly want to help the committee through this process. It's going to be very challenging. A $900 cut, that could possibly be 2 programs that may be reduced this year, and they're all great programs, and unfortunately the numbers, the funding amount cannot go up, but the cuts would have to come from certain projects that certainly the committee has priority on, and also staff feel that there's still a very strong need for a safety net programs here in the city. So that's our comments on the RFP for social services. The capital is very much the same. What we did with the capital, we did not cut the capital funding. $210,000 is the same as last year. We got about the same amount of funding last year request, about $220,000 for the capital program. So there hasn't been a significant request out there for those capital projects. By and large, of course, they'll see what's available until they may not apply, but by and large, we haven't had that large significant request as we did before, and we had millions for projects that need, nonprofits that need improvements. So that's certainly the amount of $210 is what's being proposed to in our staff report to council. As Mr. Duran mentioned, there will be a certainly recommendation by the committee that this amount get moved to, and I think the new figure is $796,536 for the community. If they get that much, I don't know if we'll get that much in requests, but again, that would be the staff recommendation. So our staff recommends that, in general, that the RFP, the guidelines, the priorities be accepted, and if the committee has comments that we can relay to the agencies about any other additional recommendations, whether it's emphasizing the safety net or anything else, then we can certainly entertain those comments to the bidders. We are having one technical assistance meeting only. Again, as we mentioned this year, it will be a meeting for agencies to come in and ask questions. This was approved by the committee at our last meeting in June, and it will be, I believe, about a week after the RFPs are due, but it will give the committee members, the agencies and departments a chance to ask questions. But generally, questions are always asked even after these technical assistance meetings. But since we're not changing significantly RFPs and applications, we don't expect that there'll be a lot of difficulties in agencies applying or having a lot of questions. So with that in mind, I'll leave it up to any other questions or discussion on the RFP for the CDBG program.
Any follow-up comments to Mr. Carrillo?
I'll move to approve.
I'll have, before we get to your motion, I just have one brief comment, Mr. Carrillo. I have a disagreement here with the workshop. In previous RFPs, we've always had two, one mandatory, one on a volunteer basis, and I have no problem with your only single workshop meeting, but I just feel if we're going to only have one, due to the importance of it, because we do get some new people. I mean, last year, if I remember correctly, we had about 3 or 4 that were regular submittals that did not follow the specifications line by line. And as a result, I think we found out that 3 of the 4 perhaps that attended it didn't attend the workshop. They were only on a volunteer basis at that time. So I have no problem if you just want a single because of the reduced staff that you have now compared to last year. But if you only have one, then I'd like to see that be a mandatory workshop then.
Well, may I make a comment? I think this issue came up last year, and we know that some of the applicants, this is not new to them. And if you make it mandatory and they miss to attend, it's just unfair that they can't submit their RFP, especially when they're so experienced and they've done it for many, many years. I just don't see a point for a mandatory RFP unless the staff feels differently.
Yeah, Mr. Cornell.
Mr. Cornell, Chairman Cornell. Yes, it's been a very difficult decision to make, but by and large, I think those agencies that certainly want technical assistance are going to come and provide that. A lot of agencies do not attend for a lot of other reasons, and most of it being that it's really hard to take a few hours, even 2-3 hours that we're there, and that usually is a director or a high-level person from their work. And especially in the nonprofit community, it's very challenging right now to take off any time. However, there is the benefit for all agencies, and they know to come to the technical assistance meeting. So we, as staff, felt that we'll leave it this year as a one-time technical assistance meeting and non-mandatory because, again, yes, we do penalize the agencies who don't attend, but again, sometimes they are still allowed to apply since there's no necessarily disqualifications from them. Unless the committee wanted to do that process, and there'll probably need to be a council report on that too. But our feeling is that let's see what happens this year with the technical assistance meeting. We want to make sure that our staff is available for those agencies that don't make it. But those agencies that don't make it usually call and they'll ask some specific question. I need the forms, where would I get them? I know how to do it. Just couldn't make it. So I think we want to be more upfront with agencies, especially the new agencies, and have them call and go through it with them. So actually it's more staff time for us, but I think we expect to want to get better proposals for you this year. And so that's one of the reasons why we did this one meeting as well.
What about having a follow-up, Mr. Carrillo, in the event that they can't make the one on the 22nd, which is extremely important, because we do get some new vendors that apply. What about having a second one, say, a week later on the 29th then? Yeah, Mr. Duran.
Mr. Chairman Cornell, committee members, if I may, it's probably more staff efficient for us to advertise that we are available to answer questions at their convenience, and they can call or come in and chat with us at any time than it is to organize a workshop off-site involving a number of staff from the office. And that's actually a feature that's not the norm. Under most formal RFP processes, an applicant has one opportunity to attend a technical assistance workshop, and that's it. Typically, staff is not available to answer any questions before or after that technical assistance workshop. So we actually do a little extra more, and we feel that in the final analysis, it's better for everyone and better serves the community when we make ourselves available for questions whenever an applicant has a question about the application. So we feel comfortable with one technical assistance workshop. It would be more efficient for us. We're always available if any questions come up. As a committee member, Mark Karen, pointed out, unfortunately, especially now with the dwindling dollars, we're probably going to see fewer and fewer new applicants and probably more concentration on the programs and agencies that have demonstrated performance over the years with their programs. So.
Any follow-up, Mr.?
No, I'm ready to second the motion.
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve 4D.
And Mr. Olivares seconded it.
Oh, second, okay. Madam Recording Secretary, roll call, please.
Committee members Oganessian absent. Olivares?
Yes.
Markarian? Yes. Sinanian?
Yes.
Chair Cornell?
Yes.
Item 5, public communications. I don't have any cards.
Is there anyone at this time, before we adjourn, that would like to come up and speak? We had one speaker, Mr. Peters, earlier on 4B. Is there anyone else? If you do, you're welcome at this time. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to ask the members, we have preset meetings that were set up at our last meeting coming up next year for the funding, and that's February 15th and February 19th. I'd like to have you mull those over so there's any conflict, and before we leave, we can get to the recording secretary then. Mr. Carrillo.
Mr. Sinani has...
I believe I've responded already. I may have a potential conflict, but that's the type of conflict there's not anything the department can possibly do about. So.
Okay. That can be resolved. Mr. Carrillo?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you brought those dates up. We also, just to remind the committee members, we do have the council meeting for the approval of the items you approved today with some revisions on November 13th. That's tentatively for November 13th, the council meeting at 2:30 p.m. here in the chambers. Following that, we'll issue an RFP on November 16th, and the proposals will be due on December 20th. So you do have time to submit the proposals. Then February is when you have your meetings.
And I think probably, as usual, you'll send us an email reminding us of the city council. And
Yes.
So that's November 15th at 2:30, is that correct?
16th, 1/6.
Oh, 1/6.
And this would be at the regular city council meeting time?
I'm sorry.
13th.
13th. The 16th is the RFP.
We'll get it right yet.
And then February 14th and 15th would be the RFP.
February 15 and
15 and
19.
19.
19.
Our proposed meetings as we had approved is for February 15th and February 19th.
And the November 13th meeting with the city council would be at the regular city council meeting time?
2:30 p.m.
Oh, 2:30.
2:30 Housing
So it's
Authority.
a housing authority, okay.
It'll be a joint city council housing authority because of the home part of it.
Any further comments by members here? Okay, if not, then
I'd like to make a
Yeah.
comment. I want to thank staff for doing such a great job under tremendous stress and horrible conditions, considering that they're losing staff, they're losing employees, they're having to cut people and still look at the same volume of work, basically look after and perform on the same level as they were before with additional staff. So I know we often express, discontent. We know we're frustrated with the money being cut, but never should we lose sight of the fact that we have wonderful department and staff that does a bang-up job. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and as a
you.
pastor, I second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think, Mr. Crowell, that's unanimous there on behalf of this committee.
Thank you.
So I hope you convey that to your staff there as well that's not present at this time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Members, don't forget to get the recording secretary or your signatures on the consent here form. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.